In this session, celebrated entrepreneurs who have successfully led impressive ventures ranging from investment banking to real estate will discuss which educational projects they support and how business people can ensure employees develop relevant skills for the demands of tomorrow. Let me first introduce our speakers. They are first Mr. Ruben VARDANYAN, founder and chairman of PHILIN and co-founder of the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative. And also Mr. Ronnie C. chairman of Hang Lung Properties Limited here in Hong Kong. Moderating for us will be Ms. Rana WEHBE, senior editor at Forbes Asia. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hi, welcome everyone. I know lunch is starting soon, so hopefully we can give you some more food for thought before heading to lunch. As mentioned, this panel is going to discuss education in emerging and frontier markets, which account now for 80% of global economic growth. And with it, there is a huge need for more education, and that also needs investment, which governments might not be able to support alone. This is where business leaders like my guests today are able to play a role in developing the education system. While most of you here may be working in the education sector, my guests come from very different backgrounds, from investment to real estate. However, they have invested a lot of time and a lot of wealth in what they believe is a great cause, which is education. I'll briefly introduce them. From my far left, Mr. Ronnie Chan, chairman of Hang Lung Properties in Hong Kong, a notable philanthropist, very active in the education space. He has served on governing and advisory bodies of several think tanks and universities around the world. Right next to me, Mr. Ruben VARDANYAN, Armenian-Russian social entrepreneur, also active in the education sector and one of the founders of Skolkovo, first private business school in Russia, as well as the founder of UWC, a school in Armenia. He's also co-founder of Aurora Humanitarian Initiative and PHILIN Philanthropy Infrastructure. Thank you for being here, and I'll just go straight to the point. Why education among all the causes you contribute to, you choose to put a lot more into education? I'd like to know your reasoning. So, Mr. Ronnie, would you like to start on that?
Well, first of all, in parts of the world such as China, East Asia in general, or India, where I just flew in an hour ago, the society loves education. And so obviously that is one area where a lot of attention are paid, a lot of philanthropic money are paid to it. Moreover, in those society, it is really interesting that, you know, in terms of business people like Ruben and myself giving, usually it has a gradient. You go from the basics, such as relief of human suffering. The next thing that every society that I have studied, the next things besides helping with earthquake and flood is education. And then you, shall I say, graduate from there to other things such as medical, such as healthcare, such as the culture and arts and that kind of stuff. So education is really at the very, very basic bottom, foundational for every society and for much of the philanthropists. And as a result, I think that that is by far the area that attention is paid to it than any other field, at least in this part of the world.
Ruben, your take?
First of all, I want to say thank you for being a part of this fantastic initiative and being in Hong Kong. I will add two other points to our discussion. I will say it will be consistent. In industrial society, the key driver of success was the capital. You concentrate the capital, you build big factories, you build big army, planes, everything. we are convinced that the 21st century is moving from the capital intensive to talentism. And by the way, just 30 minutes ago, the astronaut from the US was talking about how Soviet Union and US, and at the time I was growing up, there was no chance that any founder will think is a private company can do anything in space. Today, Elon Musk came and destroyed the industry, which was monopolized by two biggest states in the world. So I think we are living in a world where education becoming not anymore just social important for development of society, but is a key driver of the success of the future of any countries or any part of the world. That's why I think the first is education is a key for the future of the 21st century. Second, the fight for the talented people will become the major fight, because Russia in 90s lost $1.5 trillion of brain drain, okay? We lost not so much money, we lost the main talented people who left the country and went to Israel, went to South Korea, went to America, and you can see the result. This is why I think the people who don't understand this are not anymore social duty for just supporting the good education. It's not enough. You need to do best education to really be competitive in the world today.
There are also many ways to contribute in education. In your examples, for example, Ronnie, you've through your Morningside Foundation, you've donated $350 million to Harvard University, as well as $20 million to University of South California, as well as your alma mater, and as well as giving over 10,000 scholarships for students from Greater China to study in the US. While Ruben, on your end, you have chosen to start a business school in Russia. What's your reasoning in choosing? How do you choose these particular projects and what to invest in? Ronnie, would you like to start on this?
Well, the higher education stuff that we do, in a sense, is not purely education. We gave to Harvard School of Public Health. That is as much public health as it is education. The same thing with the gift to University of Southern California. It is very much to occupational science and to bring it to China. So it is not purely educational. But you're also correct that every one of us do scholarships, for example. And 25, 30 years ago when we started that, it's because China was poor. So people don't even have money to buy food and buy books. And so our bursary fund is just not so much for the education, because the government has enough money for that. But they need money to buy books, they need money to eat. So we have been giving to that area. But then the amazing thing is today, every one of them have 2 cell phones. So why on earth do we still want to give it to them when you have 2 cell phones? So I think the direction has to change. Another example is a lot of people give scholarship for Chinese to go to study in the United States, not all in the West in general. Not to mention that the United States no longer welcome Chinese students. The world has changed. My friends, their children, when they say, oh, we want to go to university and back to the United States or to Canada, I said, why don't you think twice? Why don't you think about sending them to Tsinghua University or Peking University in China, or to IIT, Ahmedabad, for example, top school in India? So I think that as the world changes, as the global economy changes, I think it's important that we who participate in helping education should change with it, including some fundamental areas such as the direction of where talents are moving for training and education. Well, I have a lot more to say, but I'll leave it to Ruben first.
Yeah,
Ruben.
sure. It's a great experience what you've been achieved by doing it so many years. I will give you 2 reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. In 2001, I was in Harvard Business School, and I was in a program of GMT program for the top managers. It was 245 cases about different areas of subjects. It was 8 about China, around 10 about India, and 2 about Russia. And we've been irrelative of the reality of what's going on in Russia, and my Chinese friends had the same about the Chinese cases. I said, how you can learn to do business in China or Russia or India if you are staying in Boston, nice area, getting all this information. Your culture, your way how you're getting information is absolutely different. So I say, there's no chance if we believe the world become multi-centric, the way how it was always established can stay only in US. In 2005, when I started the business school, I visited 42 business schools worldwide, including 28 schools in the US. In 28 schools in the US in 2005, in the career placement department was zero, no one school who been placing outside the US people who graduated business school. Because when I asked this question, I said, why we need it? Everybody wants to stay in the United States. I said, no, it will not continue the same way. It will go the different world. The world will become multi-centric, we'll need to get specialists around the world, and people can make their career, become very professional, not only staying in the US. This is why I said, let's build the schools when we can bring people from outside to learn what's happening in our region. And this was the idea. That's why our students spending time now, we're doing now a dual program with Hong Kong Science and Technology University, when our students will spend, our participants will spend time in Russia, in China, in Israel, in Armenia, and in the United States, and we can compare, we can see the difference, because it's one of the key elements. It's really to open mindset, to see the culture difference, to show the importance of the understanding of the world is not like one color, it's much more colorful. That's why I thought this will be critical. That's why in Armenia we opened the school. Armenia is a small country, so only 3 million people live in Armenia. Today, 98% of people who live in Armenia is Armenians. Today we got 84 nationalities studying in Armenia, and they're learning what this Armenia is, and they're learning from each other, all these nationalities, how they can study and can live together. I think it's very critical for the future of the world.
And Ronnie, you are on the board of many educational institutions. Shifting the focus back to Greater China, if you want, do you see any disconnect in terms of how the higher education system is operating and the skills that are increasingly needed in a market like China, where it's much more tech-focused now, for example? Do you see any disconnect, and how can people like you who have the business experience contribute in bridging that gap?
Well, China has, like everywhere else, has tremendous challenges in its educational field. Just consider one fact. China graduates about 7 to 7.5 million university graduates with a bachelor's degree every year. And many of them cannot find a job. And yet, people are saying that there's a tremendous amount of shortage of talent and human resource in mainland China. So how come these universities graduates are not finding jobs? So obviously there's mismatches. That's nothing new. There's always a case. Even if they don't find a job, my personal opinion is that if they are properly educated, in particular in the liberal arts, that are trained to think, even if they don't get a job immediately, it's still a real investment to society and an investment to the individual. But nonetheless, they need jobs. So I think that there's a lot of mismatch in the society that need to be looked at. In the last 2 years, I co-chair 3 conferences on vocational education and training. That's not a sexy area. People like to give to Harvard and USC, but who would like to give to vocational education and training? But that's really where the need is in China today. Very few countries can successfully do what Germany and Switzerland have done. 50+% of the high school kids in Germany go to another stream, not the academic stream, but a vocational stream, and 70% in Switzerland. And look at those economies. They are very thriving and very strong, strongest in Europe. And so obviously they are doing something right, and the rest of the world, especially in East Asia, where face is very important. If I don't get into a proper university, my whole family is shamed. So that kind of a thing has to be addressed. Just consider the need. Anyone know how much, in 2016, I think it is, how much money did the Chinese government pump into vocational training? You'll be shocked. They pumped $60 billion. And within the last couple of years, and that has been growing at something like 5.5% per annum since 2012. And they have pumped another $10 billion into improving the infrastructure, the schools, the teachers, the system, the curriculum, and so forth for these. There's 12,300 schools, vocational schools in China, with 100,000 majors in which a student can study. So you can see that the need there is just tremendous. And yet, very few business guys like Ruben and me are paying attention to that. So I just want to point it out, just so that some practical guys, who have a heart and a deep pocket may like to look into that, not just for China, but in many economies, such as perhaps India.
But also, like you said, it's a mindset. People still think that everybody should be a lawyer, a doctor, and not many people necessarily want to do the skills that are maybe more needed.
It's the fault of the Chinese mother and the Indian mother.
Yeah.
Russian the same, believe me.
Same thing? Oh, okay.
So you need to educate parents, you need to educate the whole society in a way, and at least in the eastern side of the world. Ruben, with you, what are some of the challenges? We talked a little about Skolkovo and why it's probably easier to address higher education than elementary education as a private investor. And if you can walk us through how you implement your investor mindset to raise funds as well for the school.
Yeah, we've been lucky to raise $600 million for business school Skolkovo in 2005, 2006. And
how much? 600 million?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, it was private money we got from the Russian and non-Russian investor, which was very good to get collegial project, not like one person giving money. We got privileged the minister mentor of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, become our board member from first day because he likes the idea and he likes the vision. And sometimes when you're starting from scratch, it's easier because it's really, you don't have a legacy, which sometimes stops you to do so many things. But I want to go about this education industry problem which we are facing, and it's a couple very critical elements which we are ignoring of the current reality. First, all the business schools, which we name business school, is not the business school, I'm sorry to say, it's the management schools, because we're not teaching about the business, we're teaching how to become good managers. If you look at the percentage of the people who really becoming entrepreneurs after graduation of MBA, it's a very low percentage because most of the people become very good management board members, but we're not. So the business schools themselves teaching more about management because they want to show the raise of the salaries. Entrepreneurship means you need to take higher risk, and this is not the case in our schools. Most of the schools, people going to school to hedge their downside risk, not to take upper risk. The second problem that we are facing in the education industry is the age of the people earning in the business is becoming younger and younger. In our school, United World College, the people who graduate 18 years old already starting their own businesses because entry costs become lower and the opportunity to make the businesses become much open earlier. So the third element, we're learning, before it was very clear, you go to university or business school, you get MBA, you immediately your status, the next 10, 20 years, you can keep this, your knowledge and your diploma will allow you to make your career. Not anymore. You need to be learning all your life, and you need to go, like I'm doing every 2 years, I'm going some business schools or any training programs just to be sure I keep myself out of the box, and I try to keep myself just in a good form to be part of the education process. So all together we said, okay, how we can do the school, which will be more entrepreneurial. Today, 40% of our graduates start their own businesses after graduation. How we can do the ages. They said we don't need a bachelor anymore. You become business school, you can become without bachelor. Okay, this is very revolutionary because today in Hong Kong you cannot become MBA student if you're not bachelor. Why need to be a bachelor? The 4 years and you're spending in what you're learning, how relevant, because we talk about 40% of Ivy League students cannot find a job. 40% of Ivy League students graduate cannot find a job. The same problem because what we're learning and what in this market is not matching. That's why I think we are in a phase of big transition of the education system, not only in business education, but overall, where the age is changing, the requirements is changing, the longevity of the education is growing, and it's all bringing some big, serious questions for all of us, not only for the state, who today is running most of the education, bigger part of the education industry, but also the private sector. Because it's strange, right? It's a major driver of the economic growth, it's the education industry, which is dominating controlled by government, which is not the driver of the economic growth. So why is the private sector, who needs to be leader of this, is not involved enough heavily to this? good question for all of us.
Maybe there's not enough return on investment. What would you say?
Partially, yes, because one of the problems is education industry is the biggest by compared oil and gas industry in the world. Very fragmented, very badly managed. Demand is growing quicker than supply. Technological disruption is bringing a lot of questions about online, offline. We just talked about this all today. And at the same time, no financial model who can provide good quality and financial stability. That's why I think it's one of the best. Everybody asks me, where is the invest money? I think education industry, because if somebody will find right model of the keeping us all in a more efficient, it will become genius and will be important player for the world for next generation.
I got an interesting question from the audience relating to that. Someone saying education is about maximizing public good, whilst business is about maximizing profits. This you can debate as well and agree or disagree. Are you familiar with an innovative business models that reconciles both to achieve an alignment and optimal impact and return? So, Ronnie, do you want to?
Well, I think that in the old days, the world is very siloed. So if you're in education, you're in business. I think the world today, partly because of communication and transportation, is really merging a lot of things together. A lot of fields, for example, like EdTech. I think you have a session on EdTech, right? I'm in the property business, PropTech. So a lot of things are now, it's true, it's serious stuff. So a lot of things are merging together. The delivery of education is just one easy thing that one can think of, but there are a zillion others that I think that, and with the business guys, they think practical. I like what Ruben just said. We business people are pragmatic. Sorry, government has its position, government staff, officials have their function in society, but I think that the ability to bring business thinking to education is tremendous. Let me cite you one example. In the old days, the government is responsible for education and the educated people in the private sector. Today, the private sector is also educating the public. I just came back from Bangalore 2 hours ago, and I was driving in front of Wipro, the head office. And as in Premji, what is he doing? He has set up an education institution to train and teach mid-level, state-level government officials. Another giant in Asia, unfortunately he died last year, Washington Sisip from the Philippines, many of you know, he also helped in a program, and it's still ongoing although he died, that trains village-level, low-level government officials in the countryside of the Philippines. So I think that the world is really changing today, and we need thinking that is beyond that which is only traditional.
Yeah, if I may add, I totally agree with you. Another element, industrial society means specialization, financial, marketing, engineering, journalists, not anymore. We're talking about creative society. In creative society, the key role will be global education, wide education, and the skills of humanitarian. And in this way, the question is, we don't understand each other. If you look at today's our conversations, it's really like if the business person talk with the education professional, we don't understand each other because we're using the same word, but we don't understand the meaning. So one of the key elements for all of us is educate, to communicate to each other, to understand each other, to make this creativity in a level where you can really bring different people with different mindset and work together. So it's different skills requirements coming to us. We need to be widely educated, very deep educated. We need to be communications, different skills. We need to be absolutely different out-of-the-box thinking. We need to be differently reacting for the failing and start again, because in creativity, you fail 10 times, and maybe once you become successful. That's why all the requirements is coming from this new society which we are entering very quickly, bring us absolutely different education standards and different level of the commitment from different part of the society to the supporting education transformation.
And how do you, the question for both of you, how do you measure the impact of your investments and all the work that you're doing and the projects, Ronnie?
This is really an amazing thing. Every Asian philanthropist gives to scholarship. I know of none that does not give to scholarship, and usually that's where they begin. However, I challenge any one of you to find research on effectiveness of scholarship. We give, make us feel good. We feel that we're doing the right thing, and you are doing the right thing, whatever your scholarship is towards. And yet, there's hardly any research, and we have, there's an organization called the Center for Asian Philanthropy and Society, CAPS. And by the way, last year, our speaker, besides Ratan Tata, Ban Ki-moon, Julia Gillard, was Dr. Charles Chen. Chen Yidan, he was one of our speakers last year. Anyway, so we look into all the literature, East and West, concerning the effectiveness of scholarship. And there's so little material on it. And so we are now doing it, and it's truly amazing. For example, we found out that a lot of people give to scholarship, they do not define what, at the beginning, what that scholarship ought to do and ought to accomplish. And as a result, there's no follow-up. And there are other, very interesting findings. Every scholarship you give in this part of the world, it affects 26 lives while the student is getting the scholarship. Not to mention what he or she will contribute to society after he or she graduates. While he's in school, 26 lives are impacted. And we have also found that those who receive scholarship later in life are far more socially conscious and far more willing to give back to society. And then we found out also that if you, after giving the scholarship, stay on with them, have an alumni club, so to speak, then the effectiveness of it also increase. So it is not just giving the money, but why do you give it, for what do you give it, and then follow up, not just when you are giving the money, but really follow up with these people's lives. They want to talk to you too, and they want to contribute, and they want to learn from you. So it is really a cycle, a loop that we should close. I think that, to increase the effectiveness of scholarship is going to be very significant, and I'm just so sad that so few people have paid attention to it and research it.
Yeah, you need to build a network in a way, and people are followers. When someone does something, it has a ripple effect. Ruben, you had to say.
One of the biggest challenges of social impact measurement is mismatch with our normal time horizon, because we're all living in like private equity, maximum 10 years, venture fund, maximum 10 years, the bond issuing, maximum 10 years. Social impact mostly is at 25 years, one generation. That's why it's a big mismatch between people giving money and looking the impact immediately, and the result that you can see after alumnus will graduate and will give back, it will take 25 years. This is why, first, it's really one of the challenges how to make its impact measurement from 25 years, matching with the 10 years horizon of most of people giving money. The second, of course, alumnus is one of the key elements, because people coming back and giving back. For example, in our school in Dilijan, it's kids from 84 countries, 35% coming back to Armenia, but it's not their motherland, and doing something for Armenia. It's exactly what we want to dream, right? But I want to go back to the main point. Elon Musk went to South Africa, being a Jewish person, to America. And the reason why he went, it was because he wanted to be successful professionally. And I'm sure many countries will pay him a lot of money to provide him all that opportunity. But he looked at other options. Can you get a family good education? Can you get a good health care? Can you have a normal environment? That's why when talking about only scholarship, it's not enough. When you say, oh, we give the money, people never come back, it's a wrong conclusion. Because do we provide the people comprehensive opportunity to come back and be successful professionally, feel safe about family and healthcare and education? That's why when we are looking social impact for our side in Armenia, we have a special 4 criteria, but we look from different angles. Say, if we provide the scholarships, can we provide also the job for those people to come back and really be successful? Because otherwise, your money is wasted. You invest money, the person gets very good education, come back and getting $2,000 a month salary in Armenia without really resisting. It does not make sense to why you are upset about he's not coming back. He's right, or she's right, staying in US or That's why, without having very comprehensive approach, when you combine education with opportunities, with the ecosystem, it's very difficult to measure just scholarship as well. That's why I will say it's one of the challenges for all of us, but it's very important to understand the picture is much more complicated.
Rana, can I add one point?
Of course, go ahead.
Why should we support education and scholarship? Personal gratification. If I were to tell you stories of what students have become that went through our programs, and then how they have interacted with us and with the family, it makes you cry, it makes you laugh, it makes you smile. So I suggest you buy me lunch or dinner, and I will tell you a lot of stories. It will be money well spent for you.
I'm happy to join it.
Well, you've got invitations lined up. Thank you very much. This is all the time we have. Please join me in giving my speakers a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.